Hey everybody, welcome back to That's the Book here on YouTube. I'm so glad to have Brother David Tipton here with me from all the way from Mississippi. And so good to have you here today, brother. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey, Brother Jaden, thank you for inviting me. I look forward to our conversation today and what you're doing. And I wish you and your podcast success. And it's a great way to communicate. Yes, I'm David Tipton. I live in Mississippi. I serve as the district superintendent of the United Pentecostal Church here in the Mississippi district for going on 16 years now. My home is in Grenada, Mississippi, and been a resident here for 30 years. So it's just good to be here and to be able to serve the Lord in any capacity that I can and to join you today.
Yes, sir. Amen. Absolutely. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started here today. The book we're going to be basing our discussion off today was actually written by Brother Tipton, and this is called Faith, Freedom, and Politics. And it's about, I want to say it's about 60 pages or so. Very quick read, very easy read. But there's a lot of great information in here regarding what to do with our faith, our freedom, and of course, our politics. So, first question I want to ask you today, what prompted you to write this book?
Thanks for the question. And of course, I too brought a copy with me.
Yes, sir.
um, After seeing several bills and legislation passed here in Mississippi with the efforts of our constituents and the relationships we've built over the years, I got to thinking that other districts could benefit from using the Mississippi model. So, as you've already stated, I put together a quick read called Faith, Freedom, and Politics. Perhaps it probably could be deemed as a handbook of some sort that will assist anyone on any level regarding involvement in the public square. So, as I begin to put the little read together, I think one of the things that helped me was when President Trump, who was elected I guess it was 2016, was nominated. Well, he nominated three, but in 18 and 2020, he had nominated. No, I take that back. In 17, he nominated Gorsuch, and in 18, Kavanaugh. And so these were constitutionists and not activists on the Supreme Court. So I got to thinking, I wrote the book, went back even yesterday and looked at my statement to the General Board in March of 2020, that it is not far-fetched for us to see Roe versus Wade overturned in our lifetime. Not knowing, I was thinking maybe it'd be after my grandkids were grown or something, but not knowing that it would happen sooner than later. I made that statement to the General Board in March of 2020, and in June 2022, we were able to live to see the day that Roe versus Wade was overturned. That had a whole lot to do with my desire over a period of several years of seeing many pieces of legislation pass and seeing the positive benefits of being involved and having relationships with elected officials. So that's how the book become birthed in me. And I thought perhaps somebody else would be interested, pastor or superintendent or someone, a local, state, or national, be able to use our little model to do the same thing in another state.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. Uh, and that kind of goes into a little bit more because you go into multiple. Each chapter is a little something different. You go into things such as political liaisons and, of course, voting, different things of that nature. So, going into my next question, more and more people are being discouraged or they're losing their desires to participate in state and federal elections.
Mm-hmm.
My question to you today would be, what do you say to those people who have lost their interest in these things?
Well, the Apostle Paul's words to the church at Ephesus is speak the truth in love. And a lot of people thinks that uh, politics is a bad word. Politics is not a bad word.
Right.
Politics is simply mean It's the art of negotiation or influence. And now, certainly, just like with anything, people can make bad out of it. Uh, Again, Paul said, speak the truth in love.
Mm-hmm.
Truth without love is brutality. Love without truth is hypocrisy. But all of this is built on relationships. So, in the church, out of the church, in your community, your local school, on your job, politics is very important because it's based on relationships. So the Bible teaches, in fact, it commands us to do everything possible to be a good citizen and to be involved for the betterment of our society. Jeremiah, the 29th chapter in verse 7, basically tells us to seek the peace and the prosperity of the city which I carried you, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. So that alone teaches us that we need to be involved in our in the public discourse, in the public square, because we take into our core values and belief into our neighborhoods, our churches, our schools, for the betterment of our society. So I would say to anyone that says, well, we shouldn't be involved in it. Well, you are being involved in it by not being involved in it, because you're not participating in the process gets us to where we are today, where a lot of things have happened because people were not involved. I encourage people to be involved, to vote, to get to know their elected officials, to have a relationship with them. And you can do all that and maintain your integrity and your Christian values and let your light shine. And that creates influence. But that influence is based on relationships. And believe it or not, politicians love or want, maybe not love, but they want trusted relationships. They want to be able to talk to somebody and feel confident that they can have a friend in you or me. So it's just about having a relationship and being a Christian.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And that kind of goes into the next question in a similar vein, but how we can balance standing firm in our biblical convictions without being offensive to those who oppose our values. What are some other ways that you can say to our listeners about balancing these two ideas?
Well, it's just like in dealing with anyone, your children, your if you teach Sunday school, if you're involved in a local church, or you have an employee or you employ people, that you have to learn ways that you can negotiate. You can sit down and have right now, Brother Jaden, the world, we're in an age of polarization. I don't have to compromise what I believe and my values to be friends with somebody that don't see eye to eye or believe everything I believe. But we are in an age of polarization when people hate on one another. I mean, social media, people are hating on one another. You got one group hating against another, and I think people have lost. And maybe we can blame that on devices and social media, where people no longer sit around a table or have coffee, rather than they communicate, or actually don't communicate. They just share their opinions on Facebook or social media without saying, hey, meet me for coffee and let's build a relationship. So I think things can get out of hand if there's not like just sit down and talk to somebody. You'd be surprised how much two people agree on things that you would think just from the surface that we don't have nothing in common. But the better you get to know someone, the more you realize you have more in common than you think. So again, and I don't want to be redundant, but I think it's about seeking the peace and the prosperity of the community, the city that you live in. So how do we go about that? For us to prosper, then we have to have dialogue. So we can't go into relationship with vitriol, hostility, and hatred, but we seek to sit around a table with someone. And I've often stated and said this many, many times, that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So I want many people around the table as possible to have frank and honest discussions, and then figure out what's best for the community, the church, the environment, whatever we're talking and discussing.
Yes, sir. Wow, incredible. Now you mentioned this little side thing here, but you mentioned sitting around having discussions and drinking a cup of coffee. Now, to those of you that might be watching that don't know Brother Tipton back during COVID released these, I guess, these short video clips, and you called it a second cup of coffee with David Tipton. And
Right.
these were just, I believe, just nuggets of inspiration that you would release each day or every few days. And brother, I tell you, you blessed me with that, and I know you've blessed so many other people with that as well.
Right. Well, I was sitting around after I had cleared my calendar in March of 2020. I had already had almost a year's worth of engagements and speaking places and places to go. And so I
Mhm.
had to clean my calendar. And I'm thinking, what can I do to stay connected? So I thought, somewhere around 9 o'clock, somebody somewhere is grabbing their second cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So it was less than 3 minutes long. And whatever the night before or the morning of, whatever come across my mind, a story I'd read years ago, a joke I'd heard, whatever come to my mind that morning around 7 or 8 o'clock, then I would get on about 9 o'clock and do a second cup of coffee. Incidentally, my secretary is transcribing those videos, and shortly, hopefully, I'll have a devotion book called Second Cup of Coffee with David Tipton. So it
All
should be out
right.
in a few weeks, hopefully.
That's awesome. Yes, sir. And and kind of going along with that, as far as where you can find the resource, Faith, Freedom, and Politics, as well as your other two books, which was Mississippi Matters and then A Journey of a Lifetime. And I believe your website for that was at Onward 365.
Onward-365.com. Or they can go to Amazon and type in the title and my name and buy them on it. I'll just show you. Of course, Mississippi Matters is probably reading backwards on the camera though, but and then A Journey of a Lifetime. But they an easy purchase on Amazon as well.
All right. Yes, sir. And we will have links in the description below for that, and the link for Brother Tipton's book, Faith, Freedom, and Politics. I was going to get into one last question with you, and then we'll end it here. And thank you again, brother, for joining me today. It's been such an honor and pleasure to have you here with us.
A
Uh,
pleasure.
yes, sir. Now you are you're a well-respected preacher, of course, retired pastor, now bishop, district superintendent of the state of Mississippi for the UPCI, and just an incredible person altogether. You have great respect from me and from many others across this country and across the world. And of course, you have some affiliations in the political world as well,
Yeah.
as you travel around and do certain things. Now, how do you personally balance being all of these things, being a bishop, being a district superintendent, being a Christian witness, even in general, with maintaining your political influence?
Okay. Thank you for the question. And before I answer it, I want to go back and speak to the involvement and just share a little something humorous with you, but about people's involvement. I heard a story about a comedian who said he was once mugged. He was beaten up. His face was black and bruised. And someone asked him, why didn't you fight back? And his answer was, I started to, but decided to not get involved.
Wow.
Well, if history teaches us anything, uh, we're getting beat up black and blue by not being involved. So
Right.
it teaches us the people of faith need to be involved in the public square. So we need to seek and save, not rant and rave.
Mm.
But in answer to your question about a superintendent and a husband, a father, a grandfather, uh, and how do I balance that Christian witness uh, and maintain a political influence? I actually think those go together. Bible says much about our responsibility as Christians to govern and do righteously. Proverbs 29:2 tells us when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when a wicked man rules, the people groan.
Mm.
In Psalms 97:2, and the righteous and justice are the foundation of God's throne. So politics involves governmental authority.
Mm.
And as believers, in one to whom all authority in heaven and earth was given, we must follow his footsteps. And we must be salt and light in the seats of authority in Washington, D.C., in our state capitals, in our local governments and municipalities as well. We need to seek to have influence. First off, we need to vote. Secondly, we need to know who our mayor and our governor, our sheriff, our supervisors or county commissioners, as some states call them. We need to know who they are, just simply because we vote for those individuals to represent us. So if they're going to govern and govern righteously, then they need the support of the faith-based community.
Yes, sir.
They need to hear from us that
Yes,
we support this particular bill, or we don't support this particular bill. Because sometimes our lack of involvement and just going on in our daily activity without paying attention, we wake up one morning, oh my Lord, a law was passed that nobody was aware of, or at least the Christian or faith community wasn't. So we try to stay alert and walk circumspectly and to pay attention. And if we find out something is adversarial to the faith community, then we start making calls, we get involved. And so that is influence. It's a gross way to put it, but I've often said it this way: when the elephant sneezes, everybody ought to catch a cold. So that's influence. And I think as an individual, we need to use our influence for good, because you can use your influence for bad or good.
Right.
So, but we need to use our influence for good, and to pray for those in authority, and to pick the best candidate. You say, well, they're not a Christian. Well, or they don't believe like I believe. Well, here's what I always say: until Jesus is on the ballot, you have to walk in there and decide which one of these individuals best represents, to the best of your knowledge, what we stand for.
Yes, sir.
And be involved. But then, so it's a balancing act but we want to be salt and light. And to do that, you can't hibernate and just hide four walls of your church and expect something to happen on the outside. In fact, Jesus said, go into all the world. So that's what I think we should do. There's even to me, a revival waiting. There's a mission field out there, even among those elected officials. Yes, that need people to pray for them and stand with them on the right things.
Yes, sir. What a way to end this segment, by talking about being salt and light unto the world, and while spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ and spreading his message, and being an influence to others, a good influence, a Christian influence. So that's wonderful, brother. And thank you so much for being a godly example for all of us, to be Christian influences, to be Christian examples for others, to reach our communities. We really do appreciate it, brother, and your ministry.
Well, I appreciate you. I've watched you grow up, and I've seen the hand of God on your life and in your life. And I believe you're going to do great things for the Lord yourself.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you have a busy schedule, so we really do appreciate it. And like I said before, you can find Brother Tipton's resource, Faith, Freedom, and Politics, as well as his other two books. And I believe is one that he'll have coming out as well here in the near future. All of that can be found on the website below. And we will see y'all shortly. And until then,
that's the book.